So, hello and a big warm welcome to you. My name's Marion Rose, PhD, and I'm a Level 2 Aware Parenting Instructor and the Regional Coordinator for Australia, New Zealand, and Indonesia. And I am so delighted to be having a conversation today with Aletha Solter, PhD, who is the founder of the Aware Parenting Institute. And we're going to be talking about her latest book, which is called Raising Joyful Lifelong Learners, which is such a glorious book, Aletha. Congratulations for writing it.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to talking with you about it.
Yeah, me too. I just absolutely loved reading it. I've already read it through a couple of times. And what I would love to ask you, first of all, is what your vision is for the book and the readers. What are you wanting parents and teachers to receive when they're reading it and after they've read it and they're digesting it all?
Yeah. Well, one of my goals was to let parents and teachers, it's not only for parents, it's also for teachers, to let everyone know that the current teaching practices in most schools around the world and the assumptions about how children learn are outdated and fairly ineffective and sometimes even stressful and harmful for children because they educational approaches have not kept up with the research. So one of my goals was to present some of the research about how children learn. And my other goal was to also give some very practical suggestions for parents and teachers, but for parents whose children go to school or whose children don't go to school, for those who homeschool their children. But it's not only for homeschooling parents, it's for all parents. And so, both the theoretical information and also more practical tips. I mean, simple things like how to help children with homework, how to help them with school stress, what kind of toys to buy. Just very, very practical suggestions.
Yeah.
So
I love
that's
that.
my
And I love
goal.
that beautiful combination. And I think your goal has been, you've absolutely done that because it's such a beautiful combination, as you say, of the research and of really practical things. And what I love that you've also included in here is your own personal experience and your own journey of learning and teaching and mentoring. And yeah, you have this usual way of and to show the thinness of it, of distilling so much information in such a concise and easy to read way for parents and teachers who are so often so busy and so much to do. It's so easy to read. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I try to make it very clear and concise because I know parents don't have much time
Yeah,
to read.
yeah, and it really is that.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. So your book focuses on the 12 principles of learning. Which aspects of learning do they address? And can you give some examples for the listeners?
Sure. I think of these 12 principles as kind of covering three main aspects of actually four, but the first three are what many parents and teachers do worry about the practicalities. So, first of all, how to motivate children, how to get them to learn. So, that's one basic topic I cover. And the answer is pretty simple that we don't need to motivate children to learn. We don't need artificial incentives like grades and rewards and competitions because children are inherently motivated to learn. They're born, that's the first principle. Okay. They're born with the ability and the desire to learn. And in fact, research has shown that learning activates pleasure centers, same pleasure centers in the brain that get activated when we satisfy our hunger by eating, the dopaminergic system. So that's really exciting that it really is inherently pleasurable. And really all we need to do is follow children's interests. That really helps. That's one of the principles too, following children's interests. So the second large aspect of learning that I cover in the principles is that the actual teaching approach, the instructional approach, what works best for children? Well, that's one of the main principles too, is that children learn best not by just being spoken to, or what's called direct instruction. That's not the best way to teach them. the best way is actually for that to discover things themselves, to learn by discovery. And that's one of the principles of learning. They learn best by discovery rather than through direct instruction. And the third aspect of learning is how do we measure the learning? How do we evaluate? How do we assess what they've learned? This is also a concern of parents and teachers. How do we know if they learned anything? How do we measure it? Now, I point out in the book, one of the principles is that tests and grades are not helpful. Okay. There are other ways to evaluate their learning that is better. We know parents, we know have a pretty good idea whether how well our children can read. Teachers too, even if they have 30 children in their class, teachers know, they know pretty well where each child is in reading and math. And a teacher's evaluation can be a lot more meaningful than a single test score. Tests, that is one of the principles that the tests are not helpful. And children learn best in the absence of tests. A grade on a test, on a math test, is not that meaningful. Children can understand the concepts and make a silly miscalculation mistake. They can also learn to rote answers, how to go through certain procedures for math problems without understanding the underlying concepts. So either way, the test result is not an accurate assessment of what children really know, and for other subjects as well. And then there's one fourth category that's covered in the principles, in my 12 principles of learning, and that's the impact of stress and trauma on children. That's very important. There's a whole chapter on that, and there are tips for helping children who have been stressed by school. So what's been happening in school, how they're being taught, or other things that are happening in school. So that's a big part of this approach. And one of the principles is that stress and trauma interfere with the ability to learn. So that's an overview of the 12 principles. And so, yeah, there are 12, and there's a bit of overlap, but that's basic ideas in the book.
I love that. And what I've really learned from you, Aletha, is a deep trust in children's innate wisdom. And I really love how throughout this whole book, you've really articulated that so clearly in all the ways you've talked about already, and so many more, that children have this innate desire and joy of learning. And that so much of it, isn't it, is us actually supporting that and preventing us from bringing in stressful and traumatic experiences that actually mean that there's less and less of that joy, which of course is so common, isn't it? We often maybe see teenagers who don't actually enjoy learning anymore, which is such a loss, isn't it? And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
as you were speaking about assessment and then stress and trauma, and I was remembering myself doing an IQ test at school and feeling so terrified that I couldn't think clearly. And so that's part of it too, isn't it? When children are stressed and they're being given tests, how can they be even connected with what they know? So I just thank you so much for this book. It's so beautiful. And so I love this part. So I love how you talked about it in the first draft of the book, that you did summarize these beautiful 12 principles that you have of learning in one of the early chapters. And then when you were revising the book, you realized that as a form of teaching the book itself, you could structure it in alignment with one of those principles, which is learning by discovery, which you just talked about. Are you wanting to share a bit more about this process? Because I just absolutely love this part.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an interesting experience for me writing this book because I've had these 12 principles of learning on my website for many years because I came up with them a long time ago. And I thought, okay, I really want to write a book about that now. So I started writing my book. I put the 12 principles, chapter 1, the 12 principles of learning. And then I thought I'd spend the rest of the book developing each one. And then I did the whole first draft that way. And then I thought about it, read it, looked what I wrote, and I said, wait a minute. The books I write, which are all nonfiction, right? In information, they are a form of teaching. It just dawned on me. This book is a form of teaching. I should follow my own advice. And what I was doing was teaching by direct instruction. I wasn't giving the reader a chance to discover things while reading. That the whole principle of learning by discovery, I wasn't doing that the way I'd written it. So I completely restructured it, put the principle of learning towards the end, but I started it with my own experiences. So chapter one is my school experiences, my childhood school experiences, my teaching experiences, which I have all sorts of different kinds of teaching experiences, and my children's school experiences. And I included music learning, music education as well. And then I talked about my experience when I lived in Switzerland. I studied with Jean Piaget at the University of Geneva, and I learned about his developmental stages and his theory of learning. And so that was part of my journey of discovery. And then from there, I went into other aspects. So it was all based on how I learned about learning. And then the principles are at the end. And I like to think that readers who read the first 7 chapters would not need chapter 8. They would not need the list of 12 principles, or they would be able to write them themselves. Someone would be able to summarize, okay, here's what Aletha is really saying. This principle number 1, principle number 2, and to really discover them themselves. So then when people read chapter 8, I'm hoping that they'll think, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that was illustrated back then. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So that's how it is structured now. And I'm happy with that structure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I loved it, for me, reading your personal experience as well, it made it really emotionally engaging too. So it's not only this really clear information, practical suggestions, but this really emotionally engaging experience of like, oh, this is, this is your experience, and it was just such a wonderful combination. So
Yeah.
I love that you had that aha moment.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I love telling stories. People love story. People love hearing stories. I tell little stories in my workshops too, my own experiences. And it's people can relate to stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is true stories, what I told them. It's from my own experience, but it's like a story. It's like reading a story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think about learning throughout the ages and how I imagine this in ancestors and still in indigenous cultures today, how much learning happened, I imagine, around the fire, or storytelling, passing down
Yes.
generation to generation. So I love the idea of, in a way, replicating that in the storytelling process.
Mhm. Yeah. Storytelling is a major way that knowledge is transmitted in indigenous cultures around the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yum.
Yes.
So Letha, how would you summarize the main message of this book in just a few?
Um, yeah, well, I would summarize the main message, I think, with the word trust. Oh, you mentioned it earlier. You mentioned trust, and trust. It is the last chapter. The last chapter is called Trust and Lifelong Learning. So to keep in mind that we really can trust children to learn. We just need to create the favorable conditions for that to happen. And the ultimate goal is lifelong learning. And that's why the title is Raising Joyful Lifelong Learners. So the word joyful is important because the goal is learning doesn't stop when we graduate from school or university. It goes on as a lifelong process. So the goal is for our children to grow up enjoying learning so much, they're going to just keep doing it. And I think it's important to keep that goal in mind. So trust and the goal of lifelong learning. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I would love to say, from my experience practicing aware parenting, that I've learned from you, from all your books and teachings and workshops over the years, and having now young adult children, having practiced these things in relation to trust and learning, that's absolutely been my experience. And the learning to really trust them has really helped me to really trust myself and my mentees and people that I work with. So it's such a gift, isn't it? This trust, it spreads once we really learn to trust.
It is. Yeah. Yes, it does. And you homeschooled your children too, which I greatly admire. And I do want to thank you for your contributions. You are quoted in my book.
Mhm.
And you shared several of your experiences, your homeschooling experiences and your observations, and that really has added a lot to the book. And several other aware parenting instructors also contributed. So it's full of real life examples,
Yeah.
thanks to you and the others who contributed.
So
Yeah.
many beautiful stories. And as you say, it's the stories that we remember, isn't it? I remember those stories from
Mhm.
my children and reading other people's stories
Mhm.
as well as yours. They're so
Yeah.
we remember them easily, don't we? So so yummy.
And it helps parents too to know that, that, for example, you raised children, you did not send them to school, you trusted their learning and development, you trusted them to learn, and they did, and they're doing fine. They're actually doing well as adults. And I chose to send my children to school, although they went to a very alternative, progressive school, at least for the first several years. And there's just different paths to accomplish the goal.
Yes, and that's
So,
the beautiful thing, isn't it? How you really articulate that and really include every parent and whatever choices they make, and even supporting them in making those choices by offering information. And that it really is possible to help children stay deeply connected to their love of learning, whatever path we choose for them, by how.
it is possible. It is possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'd love to share one little story. Is I often say to Sonny, who's 19, I say, "Well, what have you been up to?" And he says, "Oh, I just love looking through Wikipedia, just learning about all kinds of things." He's still like an absolute sponge for information, just loves it. So there you go. Lovely little story.
Yes. A lifelong learner. You've raised two lifelong learners.
Indeed.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Wonderful. Lovely.
yay.
Yeah.
So for everyone who would love, I'm sure, to go off straight away and to buy this, or perhaps tell your local library about it, it's called again Raising Joyful Lifelong Learners, and you can buy it at any major bookseller, Amazon, and all the places. And there's also more information about it on your website, isn't there, Letha, which is awareparenting.com.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you want to share before we complete?
Yeah. Yeah. This is my seventh book. And on my website, there's brief descriptions of all my books. It complements the other books. I mean, it has bits and pieces of information from other books, but it actually addresses this particular topic in depth, totally about education. So, and I had lots of fun writing it. Yes.
Which is the
Yeah.
most wonderful thing of all. And I'm curious to see, and I won't ask you now, but I look forward to the possibility that there might be at least one more book coming from you. So
We'll see about that. Not at the moment, but maybe.
maybe, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for all that you share with Aware Parenting. And I know that there are many, 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 many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of parents and families all around the world who have been deeply affected by your books and your workshops and how you spread the work through the instructors. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for all you're doing too.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yay. And thank you to everyone who's watching and listening. We so appreciate you. Lots of love.